In a world where convenience often overshadows caution, the food we order can come with unexpected ingredients. Today I'm going to share with you 3 true horror stories from unsuspecting food delivery customers. These chilling accounts reveal the darker side of dining that lurks just beyond the doorbell's chime. Stories that will make you question every delivery you've ever received, leaving you to wonder what really happens between the restaurant and your front porch. As you hear these tales, prepare yourself for unsettling surprises, eerie coincidences, and the disturbing truth that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we invite into our homes. So hold on to your seats and listen closely, because what you're about to discover might just change the way you view your next late night snack. Are you ready to peel back the layers of horror hidden in the seemingly innocent world of food delivery? Buckle up, because these stories are not for the faint of heart. I never thought a food delivery could change my life forever. It was a Friday night, the type where the streets hum with life and the air smelled of rain and fried food. My best friend, James, had convinced me to order from this newly opened Thai restaurant that had been getting rave reviews. I was slightly hesitant, had a weird feeling about it. I shrugged it off. We were in our mid-20s, living in a cramped apartment in downtown Dallas, and a steaming bowl of pad thai was just what I needed after a long week. As I placed the order through the app, I noticed an odd detail. The delivery time was unusually long, almost 90 minutes. I shrugged it off again. Maybe they were overwhelmed with orders. After about an hour, the storm clouds rolled in, casting a shadow over the city. The wind picked up, rattling the windows, and the distant sound of thunder echoed like a warning. I could feel a chill creeping into the room, but I told myself it was just the weather. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, my phone buzzed. The delivery guy was downstairs. I rushed to the door, excitement bubbling inside me. I opened it, and there stood a man in his late 50s, drenched from the rain. His clothes were tattered, and there was an unsettling stillness in his eyes, as if he wasn't quite present. He handed me the bag without a word, and I noticed his hands were shaking slightly. The smell wafting from the bag was intoxicating, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Thanks, man," I said, trying to break the silence. He didn't respond. Instead, he just stared at me, his eyes piercing through the dim light of the hallway. I felt a shiver run down my spine, but I quickly closed the door, dismissing the encounter as just an odd delivery. James and I sat down at the table, the delicious aroma from the food swirling around us, momentarily washing away my discomfort. The first few bites were heavenly, the flavors mingling perfectly on my palate, but as I continued to eat, I noticed something strange. The texture was off. It was almost slimy. I pushed the thought aside and kept eating, but the delicious pad thai soon turned into a battle against my stomach. Something felt wrong. My heart raced, and I suddenly felt dizzy. "Are you okay?" James asked, concern etching itself across his face. I nodded, but I could sense that something was deeply amiss. As I tried to shake off the nausea, I felt a heaviness in the air, the kind that clings to your skin like a damp fog. I glanced toward the window and noticed the storm outside had intensified. The wind howled and rain lashed against the glass, but my eyes were drawn back to the food. It sat there, seemingly innocent, but now it felt like a trap. "Let's take a break," I suggested, pushing the plate away. James looked at me quizzically but nodded. As we sat in silence, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I glanced around the dimly lit room, my heart racing. Shadows danced along the walls, and I could hear the faint sound of whispering, almost like a conversation taking place just out of earshot. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. James cocked his head, listening intently. "Hear what?" he replied, confusion evident on his face. I tried to explain, but the words felt stuck in my throat. The whispers grew louder, almost mocking. I could almost make out a phrase, something like, "It's too late." The atmosphere became suffocating, and I felt my breathing quicken. "Let's just eat," James said, trying to lighten the mood. But I knew something was wrong. I could feel a presence looming over us, and it wasn't just the food. It was in the air, an electric tension that made my skin crawl. I picked up my phone and opened the delivery app, searching for the restaurant's information, anything to distract myself from the growing dread. But when I looked, the restaurant wasn't listed anymore. Panic surged in my chest. "James, the restaurant isn't on the app anymore," I said, my voice trembling. He frowned and grabbed my phone, scrolling through. "That's weird. Maybe it was a pop-up?" Before I could reply, the lights flickered violently, plunging the apartment into darkness. James cursed under his breath and fumbled for his phone. The faint light illuminated his face, revealing a pallor that hadn't been there moments before. I glanced at the food, and in that moment I swore I saw the noodles writhing like tiny snakes trying to escape the plate. "Did you see that?" I gasped, my voice breaking into a stutter. "It's just the shadows," he replied dismissively. I knew he was trying to be rational, but the atmosphere felt charged, like static electricity before a storm. The whispers escalated, swirling around us, clawing at the edges of my sanity. Suddenly the front door slammed open, revealing the delivery man, his eyes now black pits. He stepped inside like he belonged there, his movements deliberate and slow. "You shouldn't have eaten," he said, his voice a low growl that sent chills down my spine. My heart raced, and I felt paralyzed, unable to move or scream. "Who are you?" James managed to croak out, but the man didn't answer. He just stood there, advancing slowly, predatory smile creeping across his face. "You're part of it now," he whispered. I felt the world around me spin, darkness encroaching on my vision. Panic surged through me, and I turned to grab the door handle, desperate to escape. But as I turned back, the man had vanished. The whispers crescendoed into a cacophony, drowning out my thoughts. I stumbled back, knocking over the chair as I tried to make sense of what was happening. "James!" I screamed, frantically searching for him. He was gone, swallowed by the shadows. I felt the air grow cold around me, and I knew that whatever had happened with that food was only the beginning. I ran toward the window, hoping to see the streetlights, the safety of the outside world, only to find the glass fogged over, showing nothing but darkness. In that suffocating silence, I understood. The delivery had been more than just food. It had been an invitation to a nightmare I couldn't escape. The shadows deepened, the whispers turned into manic laughter, and I was left standing alone, a mere vessel for whatever had been unleashed. The storm outside raged on, but inside, the true horror was just beginning. It was a chilly Friday evening when I decided to order food from that new delivery app my friends had been raving about. I'd been home alone for hours, the silence stretching around me like a thick fog, and the thought of cooking felt unbearable. I settled into my couch, the dim light of the television flickering like a candle in the dark. As I scrolled through the app, my fingers hesitated over the screen, an unsettling feeling creeping up my spine, but I brushed it off. I was hungry. I ordered a pepperoni pizza and a side of garlic knots, the anticipation of warm, cheesy comfort making my stomach growl. As I pressed confirm, I noticed the estimated delivery time, 40 minutes. Not too bad, I thought. I sank deeper into the couch, the shadows of the room growing longer as the sun dipped below the horizon. About 30 minutes in, my phone buzzed, jolting me from my thoughtless daze. It was a text from the delivery driver. "I'm outside," it read. I frowned and glanced out the window. The streetlights flickered ominously in the darkness, and I couldn't see anyone. I pulled my phone closer, a knot forming in my stomach. "Could you come to the door?" I replied hesitantly, the chill of the impending interaction creeping back into my bones. There was no response. I waited, staring at my phone, the clock ticking away the seconds into minutes. My heart began to race as I paced back and forth in the small living room. I could sense something was off, that gnawing feeling clawing at the edges of my mind. What if something happened to the driver? The thought spiraled, conjuring images of accidents and misfortune, but I quickly shook my head. "You're being paranoid," I told myself, forcing a breath. Just as I was about to dismiss the whole thing and call the restaurant, I heard footsteps crunching on the gravel outside. I rushed to the door, glancing through the peephole, A figure stood there, drenched in shadow, the outline indistinct. My heart pounded as I hesitated, a creeping dread washing over me. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. "Your food," came a gravelly voice in response, low and rough. Something about it sent shivers through me, but I could see a pizza bag slung over the man's shoulder. "Open up!" I fumbled with the lock, my hand shaking, as I finally managed to undo it and pull the door ajar. The delivery man stepped forward, his face marred by the shadows and the dim light from my porch. "Here," he said, extending the bag toward me. I hesitated, my eyes darting to the empty street behind him. "You can take it." Thanks," I replied, taking it from him, my fingers brushing against his. I noticed his hands were cold, almost clammy against mine. "Is everything okay?" I asked, unable to quell the curiosity. "Fine," he replied curtly, his gaze fixed somewhere over my shoulder, not quite making eye contact. "Just be careful." I blinked, confusion washing over me as I took a step back, my instinct adding up the strange behavior. Okay, thanks again." I closed the door, the heavy thud echoing in my ears as I leaned against it, my heart racing. Did he seem off? I shook my head, trying to reason with myself. The aroma of the pizza hit me as I ripped open the bag, a comforting warmth enveloping me. I took a seat at the kitchen table, pulling the pizza box closer, but the unease lingered. I glanced at the clock. It was nearly 8, and the world outside had fallen deep into darkness. As I bit into a slice, the taste was heavenly, but it was soon overshadowed by a low, whispering sound. I paused, the noise seeming to come from the very walls of my apartment. It was soft, almost like a voice, but I couldn't make out the words. I sat still, listening intently, the gnawing feeling in my gut returning. "Stop it," I muttered to myself, shaking my head. I took another bite, trying to drown out the whisper with food, but it pulsed through the room, growing louder and more insistent. I rose from the table, moving toward the living room, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling in response to the chilling unease. "Hello," I called out, but there was only silence. As I turned back toward the kitchen, the air grew thick, pressing against me. I reached the doorway when a loud crash broke the stillness, a sound that sent my heart racing. I spun around to see the pizza box had toppled to the floor, the slices scattering across the tiles. "What the hell?" I exclaimed, stepping forward, panic rising within me. As I bent down to pick up the mess, the whispers returned, closer now, as if circling around me. I gripped the edge of the table, my breath quickening. "This isn't funny," I shouted, but the voice seemed to seep into my consciousness, wrapping around my thoughts. I felt lightheaded, the room tilting slightly, a wave of nausea washing over me. Suddenly a cold breeze swept through the kitchen, causing the curtains to flutter wildly. I stumbled back, my eyes darting toward the windows, half expecting to see the delivery man standing there, grinning, but there was nothing. Just the darkness pressing against the glass. My phone buzzed on the table, snapping me out of my daze. With trembling hands, I picked it up, expecting another message from the driver, but it was a notification from the app. I opened it, my heart plummeting at the words that greeted me. "Delivery cancelled." "What?" I muttered, confusion flooding my mind. It felt like the ground was shifting beneath me. I looked around the kitchen, feeling the whispers intensify, swirling into a cacophony of unintelligible murmurs. I backed away, my heart racing as I stumbled toward the hallway, desperate to escape the suffocating air. "Stop it!" I screamed, my voice cracking as I ran. I rushed down the corridor, a primal urge to flee overtaking me, but as I reached the front door, it slammed shut with a deafening bang. I turned on my heels, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The kitchen was shadowed, and the whispers became a low, mocking laughter, echoing in the corners of my mind. I couldn't breathe. I was trapped. In that moment, I realized the truth. The delivery wasn't just food, it was a curse. The whispers carried a warning, a message I couldn't decipher, but I felt it clawing at my sanity, threatening to pull me under. The last thing I remember was the laughter ringing in my ears as I sank to the floor, the world around me fading into darkness, and the gnawing sensation of dread becoming a consuming abyss. I was lost, forever ensnared in a cycle of horror, every ghostly whisper echoing the truth. I should have never opened that door. It was just another mundane Thursday evening in my cramped apartment in downtown Dallas, the kind of night that often fades into the background, unnoticed. As I settled into my routine, the familiar sound of my phone chimed, alerting me to a food delivery. I had ordered a simple pizza, the kind that slides easily down your throat while binge-watching whatever series Netflix had to offer. Nothing unusual, right? But that night, the air felt heavier, almost charged with a strange energy that set my nerves on edge. I dismissed it, attributing my anxiety to the over-caffeinated day I'd endured. The delivery was supposed to be from a new place, a tiny, unmarked pizzeria that had recently opened up nearby. As I paced the room, I couldn't shake off the odd feeling that clung to me like a second skin. Just as I was about to convince myself to relax, I heard a soft knock at the door. "Coming!" I shouted, trying to mask my unease. I took a deep breath, smoothing down my shirt as I approached the door. Through the peephole, I caught sight of a figure standing just outside, a delivery guy, his silhouette backlit by the hallway lights. I opened the door, and the man looked up at me, his expression unreadable. "Here's your order," he said flatly, extending the pizza box toward me. He had an unsettling calmness about him, his eyes almost hollow. "Thanks," I replied, trying to ignore the chill that ran down my spine. As I reached for the box, I noticed a strange insignia etched into the cardboard, a symbol that I could almost recognize but couldn't place. "You should be careful," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Not everyone who orders from here is ready for what they get." Okay," I stammered, taken aback. I shrugged it off, offering him a few dollars as a tip before closing the door. I leaned against it, shaking my head at my own overactive imagination. This was just a guy doing his job, I told myself. I set the pizza on the coffee table and opened it, the aroma instantly filling the room. As I took my first slice, the taste was surprising, smoky and rich, just the way I liked it. But with each bite, I felt a growing sense of unease creeping in. Maybe it was just that strange encounter with the delivery guy. I brushed it off, devouring slice after slice, trying to shake the feeling. Halfway through, a sudden noise interrupted my thoughts. A faint whisper, barely audible. My heart raced as I strained to listen. It came again, a chilling cadence that seemed to seep through the walls. "Help me!" I froze, the slice halfway to my mouth. The sound echoed in the silence, sounding almost desperate. I stood up, my pulse pounding in my ears, and walked toward the window, peering out at the darkened street below. Nothing seemed out of place. The usual hustle of the city had quieted, leaving only the distant sound of cars and the rustle of leaves. I shook my head again, dismissing it as my mind playing tricks on me. Maybe I was just tired, or maybe the pizza had something strange in it. I returned to the couch, but the whisper persisted, louder now, and I realized it wasn't just in my head. "Help me, please." I took a deep breath, swallowing hard, trying to gather my thoughts. The voice seemed to be coming from the other side of the wall, an apartment that had been empty for months. I hesitated, the rational part of my brain screaming that I should ignore it, but something compelled me to investigate. I approached the wall, pressing my ear against it. The whisper intensified, a chilling symphony of agony that made my blood run cold. The words were indistinguishable now, layered with a sense of urgency that felt almost tangible. I could feel the hairs on my arms standing at attention. "Help! Me!" There was a soft thud, and a sudden wave of dizziness washed over me. I staggered back, collapsing onto the couch, feeling as if the very air had thickened around me. My heart raced wildly, an animal desperate to escape. I needed to calm down, to think clearly. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking as I scrolled through the app, to call the delivery place. Perhaps they had a refund policy or could send someone to investigate. But as I pressed the button, the screen flickered, and the call failed. "Damn it!" I muttered, frustration rising. I tried again, but it was dead. My Wi-Fi flickered, The lights dimmed momentarily, and a sickly feeling settled in my stomach. Then the whisper came again, louder, more insistent. "Let me in." A chill ran down my spine. I could almost envision a face pressed against the wall, desperate and wild. I forced myself to stand up, heart racing, and approached the wall once more, my fingers brushing against the cold plaster. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" Silence. Just as I was about to turn away, a soft scratching began, a series of faint taps that seemed to dance across the surface. I recoiled, fear gripping me as the shadows in the room grew darker, as if the air itself was thickening. I turned to run, but before I could reach the door, a loud crash reverberated through the apartment, shaking the floor. The pizza box flew off the table and the lights flickered violently. "Help me! Let me in!" The voice, now a cacophony of screams, filled my ears, drowning out everything else. I pressed my hands against my ears, but the sound grew louder, more desperate. I stumbled backward, falling against the couch as the whisper transformed into a low growl, a menacing presence that seemed to seep from the walls. The shadows twisted, forming shapes that danced at the edges of my vision, taunting me. I glanced back at the door, panic surging through me. I had to get out. The doorknob felt impossibly cold against my palm as I turned it, but it refused to budge. "Help me!" The voice echoed in my mind, merging with the thuds from upstairs. I felt bile rise in my throat. What had I gotten myself into? With a final cry, I threw myself against the door, again and again, desperation fueling each impact. I could almost see the dark figure lurking behind me, its presence suffocating, a hungry shadow waiting to swallow me whole. Finally, I forced the door open, stumbling into the hallway. I didn't stop to look back as I ran down the stairs, fueled by pure panic. The whispers faded, replaced by the pounding of my heart. Outside, the cool night air hit me like a slap. I breathed deeply, trying to ground myself, but the fear lingered. I glanced back at the building, realizing the shadows still danced behind the curtains, watching me as I fled. I never did get the chance to understand what I heard that night, or who or what was trying to reach me. But as I walked away, I felt a profound sense of loss. What if I had helped? What if I was too late? The questions lingered long after I left that cursed place behind, haunting me as I tried to reclaim my life. So what do you think? Have you ever encountered something spooky like this? I'd love to hear your tales in the comments below. They give me chills in the best way. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more spine-tingling content. Until next time, if you dare to come back for more thrills.